Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Doug Saunders, CIO of Arctic Glacier Premium Ice. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past theirs. That's where CyberLynx comes in. We've partnered with the best cybersecurity companies in the world to be able to provide our clients with the best solutions at the best prices. So whether it's managed SIEM, SOC, EDR, MDR, XDR, you name it, we'll help you find the best solution at the best price. Find out more at cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Doug, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Arctic Glacier Premium Ice and your role there as CIO?
Yeah, sure. So Arctic Glacier is a company that's been around over 100 years. Started up in Canada with a horse, a wagon, some frozen water, and kind of hand delivered, and it's really kind of grown to a U.S. Canadian based company. We serve 70 plus thousand customers, and we're privately held, PE backed by Carlyle and Company. And so the packaged ice industry is a unique business. Most people think, okay, great, you take water, you put it in a bag, and you put it on a truck and you sell it. But it's a really interesting culture. There's been a lot of people that have been here 30, 40 years that have been in this business forever. There's some unique things that the new management team that's been here a couple of years have really tried to do to differentiate from competition and kind of create kind of a new platform. So Carlyle, great, a lot of smart people, private equity company. They like to make money, right? So when they sell us, they're going to want to make sure we're creating value for the company when it gets sold, and that's what we've been doing the last couple of years, and it's been an exciting journey. I've been CIO for a couple of years here now, almost 2 years. Our team came in, really the new SLT came in. Things were kind of flat for a couple of years, and Carlo made a change. Kind of stuck on an EBITDA number, and okay, how do we start growing that EBITDA number going forward? And so that's been really my role around not just keeping the lights on that we like to say in IT, but also creating some innovation, really growing top line, bottom line revenue. So that's really what we've been focused on the last few years.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was really interested in how things, kind of played out once Carlyle got involved. I mean, you hear all kinds of stories, with private equity, some really good, some really bad, some in between. And, Carlyle's obviously, got a great name and great reputation. And so I'm kind of curious as they've moved in, and you kind of mentioned they set that EBITDA number. Great. I think that's, for a lot of, IT leadership, that's now like, well, how do we, cut costs? How do we, whatever? What's your approach been to that? Because I think for a lot of people that would have been a bit of a struggle, and like, oh, we might have to downsize. What was your approach, and how are you going about trying to help reach that EBITDA number?
Yeah, I think that, again, Carlyle is, first of all, they're wonderful to work with. I've worked for other PE companies that have, to your point, have not been. It's been a little bit of, for lack of a better term, they're in your shorts day to day, right? They're just kind of micromanaging. I mean, Carlyle's pretty clear on what the objectives are in terms of, look, you got to create value for the company. You got to grow that EBITDA, right? That's what we're here for. And I think the mindset has to shift. So if you are working in a company that is really focused on keeping the lights on, my wife, for example, is in technology and they sell medical devices. And those things are unbelievable. I mean, like you get in a car wreck and they 3D print a jaw, right, that can go in here. So I don't know that IT is really creating a lot of innovation around that. They're helping the company grow, but they're just really focused on keeping things moving forward. We had to be innovative here. Like, okay, there's competition that has been doing the same thing for, like I mentioned, 100 plus years. How do we differentiate ourselves? So we really kind of set out and said, what can we do in the technology space that's unique, not only to create efficiency, and really kind of, shrink, our expense line, but also what can we do on the top line side? And so it's really been kind of a fascinating year and a half journey of really some quick growth, which when we took over was, kind of fairly stagnant to be honest with you. I guess the last leadership team, obviously that's why you bring new people in.
Right.
But it left it a little, stagnant place. And I think Carlyle was looking for some growth. In fairness, they've held us since 17. It's getting to the end. Like
Yep.
Carlisle doesn't hold forever. They're getting out of consumer product groups, right? They're selling off their and focusing more on tech and health and insurance and things of that nature. So it's really been a little bit of a high pressure may not be the right word, but a little bit put a pressure on ourselves to really kind of grow this thing and get some value created for Carlisle and for the internal folks as well.
So can you, are you, are you able to go into some of those kind of specifics, like, ways that you were
Sure.
creative, how you went about that or how you're going
Yeah, I
about that?
think, yeah, some is kind of just makes sense, right? So if you have 50, 55 agents that are taking 500,000 interactions a year, hey, I want to order ice, or where is my ice? You can really use technology to kind of shrink that headcount, right? So using Agentic AI, we created agents and bot technology that started handling those interactions. So if you back up a little bit, there's a couple ways you can order with us, right? So the bigger companies, the Walmarts, the Costco's might do something through PO EDI, and we put 50 pallets of ice on a truck and we take it and we drop it in their warehouse, and that's easy, right? Because that's just a true B2B easy transaction. But you also have smaller customers, smaller chains that have to place orders. And so traditionally on a direct sales delivery, or where you're the DSD routes where you're driving from gas station to gas station and you're opening the door, right? And you're okay, that's full. I go to the next one. Oh, I put 100 bags in, right? And so you have to keep this ice full all the time, and that's kind of the trick. And
Yeah.
it's traditionally running these static routes, and we just run the route and what we sell.
Yeah.
And then if a customer gets low, they call in or they say, hey, where's my delivery? Right. So that's kind of the ecosystem when we got here. And we were looking to kind of flip that on its ear. And so really what we did was we started with, well, let's take the interactions and really automate them. And so it wasn't just taking the orders and putting, we call it Glen Glacier. I tried to use vanilla ice, right? But you get a cease and desist pretty quick if you're, using those sorts of things. And so it went to Glen Glacier. Marketing team came up with that. So that's our bot. Conversational AI. It can't answer. It's not going to tell you what the Maple Leaf score is, but it's gonna, you know, how do I pay my bill? Where's my ice? Things of that nature. And we really cut our head count from 55 down to 1510. So you
Wow.
can imagine the not only are people not sitting in line and waiting and hold forever, but they're getting the information they need quickly and efficiently. We reduce our costs. It creates a better customer experience from that standpoint, and really is millions of dollars to the EBITDA line, right? Just
Yeah.
because we took a call center and we literally sold the call center. We sent 10 agents home, right? We reduced the head count and then we created this efficiency. The other interesting thing, some customers make us go into a portal. CVS is a good example. We go into a portal, we download a spreadsheet, we hand key things in. Another great way to take agentic AI and create this experience where it just does that automated, right? It sends them an email, a confirmation that, hey, we've got your order, here it is, but we've automated all that. So we've taken a lot of this manual
Wow.
work that's probably, in all honesty, no fun anyway. I mean, can you
Nope.
imagine sitting on the phone 8 hours and saying, here's where your ice is, etc. So that's kind of the first step we took is this agentic AI approach to really kind of helping us solve problems around the customer service space. Great story in terms of just EBITDA savings. So we've gone up about 25-30 million dollars in EBIT over the last couple of years, and that's kind of a big success story. And so I think the second part of that is that when I was mentioning the delivery piece of this and the logistics piece with some of the DSD customers is you just aren't real efficient opening a door to what we call a merchandiser and only putting 2 bags of ice in.
Right.
So we were able to just off historical sales try to guess where to go. And the team had done historically some really good work around reducing low sale or no sale stops. But we were like, really, how do you maximize that? So we kind of came up with a metric, at least a thesis that said for every percentage of drop size. So if I'm going to a merchandiser and it's 50% full and I can get to I'm going on average everywhere and I can get it to 51%, that's $1 million in savings, right? And so that was really the original goal. So we put IoT sensors in these merchandisers that use LiDAR to really tell us how much
Nice.
ice is still left here. So now it can create kind of an auto or a demand signal. You need to go here. So that's one thing we did with it. As I mentioned, we
Awesome.
have 50,000 of these things at 15,000 a pop. That's a pretty big number. I went to Alabama. I don't know what that math is, right?
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, I have a Russian history background, not a mathematic background. But anyway, it's a lot of money. And so how do you keep track of these things? So we can use that to do that as well. We can also use that sensor to tell us when the temperature stays too high. So is that merchandiser broken, and how do we be proactive to go fix it
Yeah.
versus reactive? But then we had to really take that order and kind of create using again kind of some agentic AI around, okay, now I've got to figure out how fast is that ice going down? What is the weather like? So you bring in some weather analytics, right? Could be also day of week. Is it the weekend? Is it not? And create an order, which then goes on a route. And then that story has been that kind of unique automation has been really just mind-boggling in terms of the savings. So been able to really generate. So we tested it in California, for example, and we were able to reduce 40% of our stops completely. So you're kind of creating this ability to control and deliver where it's most profitable, which obviously drives up EBITDA. And so it's really been a great story to leverage technology, work with our business teams. It's not just an IT thing, it's not just a me thing. It's literally our logistics teams, our operations folks, our plant managers, our distribution managers really bought into this thing
Yeah.
and have really all worked together because we need the logistics folks to tell us how to route most efficiently, how it affects the customers, because we route logistically out of Toronto centralized, but we also use our distribution manager. So if someone out in LA knows the traffic patterns and the better than we do up in Toronto. So, it's really been a great story of teamwork and working together to produce a financial result that's been really amazing over the last year and a half.
That is
Mhm.
super cool. So I think for you obviously had great success, using the agentic AI. I think for a lot of people, who haven't, I think a lot of people haven't really kind of gone down that path yet. They hear a lot about it. What was your path like there? Was it,
Mhm.
did you find was it a difficult, selecting, the technology? Was it difficult implementing? And kind of what advice would you give people, looking to do something similar?
Yeah, I think that you start. Everybody wants to start with Gen AI, right? So the Chat GBT model, like it can do everything and it's wide open. And you start looking there, where can this help us? How can we take? I mean, I remember I have 4 children, and my son saying, "Hey, watch this." So he opens up the refrigerator door, takes a picture, and asks ChatGPT to give me a recipe of what I can eat based on what it sees, and it does. And so, okay, then my mind starts thinking, well, how do you use this in business? And I didn't really see a whole lot of Gen AI use cases with that kind of wide open conversational, but just working and thinking, okay, and reading about some of this agentic AI, which is really specific, it has more guardrails, it's doing specific tasks, almost like an agent. You see these agents now that are lifelike, right? And human voice, and you don't even know you're talking to, we didn't get that sophisticated yet. I mean, our we have some agentic AI taking voice calls, but really where we wanted to use it is in this customer facing use case. I think the other big thing people get frozen on, not to use ice terminology, but they do freeze a little bit. Oh my data is not perfect.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to get your data perfect ever.
Yep.
And we knew that there were going to be some mistakes in this agentic AI solution, and you had to tune it. No different than I take a person that's going to make a mistake as I put an agent on the floor or on the phone, and you have to train tune the agent, right? And
Yep.
teach the business. And so we had to have, again, our customer service team kind of embrace that it's not a tech solution. That's going to be perfect. It's going to take time. It's going to, have problems, etc. And so I think those are the two things that we learned that don't wait for your data to be perfect. You have to have that subset of data pretty well defined and clean, but not perfect. And it's okay that the solution's not 100% accurate right out of the gate, because a lot of people thought, well, if it's not 100% accurate, they're not going to use it.
Yeah.
Well, your agents, live agents, aren't 100% accurate either. Are they not going to call? They will. And I think those are the two things that we really learned, that I would tell people that, um, really focus on not being perfect, but working for improvement, both on the data side and the agent side.
Yeah. Beautiful. And what did the kind of tuning look like? Was that was it easier than you expected, about on par, harder and longer? What was that like?
Yeah, I think that the tuning, because you have certain use cases that we knew about. Where's my ice? How do I pay my bill? Those things. But now you get, like, this is something that came in because you also take some sales calls. So we don't really deal with consumers directly per se. But if I need 10 bags of ice for a wedding. Well, okay, you're not really trained for that. You got to really get to it. But how can you? So okay, so now we started thinking, what if we said, well, you're calling from Los Angeles, county, and you're calling from Manhattan Beach, and we know that. And now, and you ask it for a zip code. Well, if you go to your Target or your Costco, Arctic Glacier Ice has a merchandiser there that's, we could even tell them how full it was if we wanted to, right? Because of the
Yeah.
IoT, but it's there. Go there to get your 10 bags of ice. And so those are the types of tuning things that you can really do, because it's just unexpected questions,
Yeah.
right? That you have to do. Yes, in the very beginning, the integration of data between, say, a logistics system and Salesforce is what we use for CRM, right? And making sure that we knew where routes were and making sure that was accurate, and that data integration. Yeah, we've got to get that kind of fixed first. And then you kind of start addressing some of these unique questions that come in and you see. And it's really been fascinating to kind of watch the capability of these things and where they actually really could end up going. And we're still looking at roadmap items of where to go next, right? And so that's kind of the fun thing, is you start getting creative about, where can this really take us? And so I think agentic AI for us, is going to be way more powerful than Gen AI, where it's just completely open ended.
Well, can I ask what agent did you end up going with?
In this use case that's customer facing, because we used Salesforce, we use Agentforce. And we were
Nice.
kind of an early adopter. And Carlyle has been great, and they have partnerships, deep partnerships with a lot of the big tech firms. And there's Salesforce people assigned directly to us that really helped us with this use case. And in fact, we've actually spoke at a lot of the Salesforce private equity days about our ability to turn Agentforce into something profitable, because it's so early, there wasn't a lot of use cases.
Yeah.
And so it's been a great success story, not only for us, but I think even for Salesforce itself around Agentforce and its ability to kind of really produce a nice ROI. And they've been a great partner. And but I also think, just to caveat that, not to, agent force and Salesforce are great, but some of the stuff that does our orders, not Salesforce, right? I don't know that you're just going to be stuck on one platform here.
Right.
That it depends on what you're trying to accomplish too. There's a lot of great partner, Microsoft. There's all sorts of different ones out there. Salesforce is great if you're using their platform, and I highly recommend it. But I'm not going to be solely using Salesforce on the agentic AI side. I don't think that's practical, depending on what we're trying to do.
Right. No. And you kind of hinted or touched on something there with Carlyle being, being very beneficial with their relationships. I mean, you hear that on occasion that, that having that relationship with somebody like Microsoft, with Salesforce, with, because for a lot of smaller businesses, forget about it. You call up,
Yeah.
you'll be lucky if you get somebody to talk to. So, can you talk about that kind of, not to kind of promote Carlisle, but I think it is something that is really valuable for a lot of businesses would think, look, I don't want to get in bed with private equity because things are going well. We don't really need the money. But if you're looking at how do we get to that next level, how do we expand and really kind of go for it? And I think with the advent of AI now, it's always a question of, is this an existential crisis for our industry, for our business, right? Where will we be? Will we be replaced because we weren't on that cutting edge? So I think that, partnering with a private equity firm that has those kind of connections, can be very useful to help get you get you the in with the developers and the engineers at these large companies. But what was that like for you guys?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, kind of in the opening about the partnership with Carlyle, and they have a whole tech services team, technology team. Michael Kingston, kind of the CIO of Americas, Rob Sears, who's a principal in their technology services department, are great at bringing you vendors and ideas. I mean, we have monthly calls with them where they introduce new technology to you that you may not be exposed to. So if you're a smaller company that's, basically still privately held or family held, and you don't have really access to that, you're a little bit at a disadvantage unless you know somebody in the partner ecosystem. The other advantage, I mean, I'm just kind of probably making this up a little bit, just a caveat, but let's just say the portfolio companies of all the of all of Carlyle have got to be spending billions of dollars, right, on just technology budgets. That's a pretty big. If you go to Salesforce or Microsoft and you say, I can introduce you to portfolio companies, you're probably going to get really good pricing. So our pricing going to these technologies is really helpful. Now you do get it was interesting. I was watching a video, if you know this, the Bucky's, the gas
Yeah.
station bit, and they're still, at the time of the interview, have resisted private equity people. They're still family owned because they didn't want the pressure of shrinking margins and cutting costs and things of that nature to really affect their business and what they deliver inside their stores, which I completely get. But in other industries, if you're not using AI and you're not innovating and being creative, like in the ice business, I don't know where you'd be if you were a small ice company that only served, say, Chicago. How are you going to compete with some of the bigger players if you're not going down some of this path and doing some of these things and being disruptive?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Carlisle has been very instrumental. Michael and Rob specifically have really kind of helped not just us, but other portfolio companies. It's great. We have a tech conference every year. Carlisle, that brings all the CIOs together. We were at the Salesforce building and ironically in San Francisco this year, back in June, and you get to listen to all the other portcos talk about what they're working on, what some of their problems are, and Carlisle's so great about kind of helping you, introduce you to the right partner. And it's been a very wonderful fit for Arctic and Carlisle. They've also are great at introducing you to other partners. So we have a partner called Nimble Gravity, which is the Aero Electronics team, right? If you know Aero Electronics is their IT team, and some of their leaders in the IT started this company after they exited Carlisle. and really can help us with a lot of the data science, a lot of the, the AI builds, a lot of the integration work. Another fascinating, very productive partnership that Carlisle kind of made that introduction to. And they're like, Nimble Gravity is like, I went from 30 to 10 people in my FTEIT because I can rely on them. I don't need people staring at routers and switches. I can third party that. Not that that's not important. It really is. Security is very important. But in our case at Arctic, we really had to drive, we had value creation was what this was all about. And I needed a partner like Nimble to give me that skill set. And so that's been another great thing that Carlisle's really helped introduce and to help us be successful.
Yeah, I mean that's really interesting because I think for most people they go to like these industry conferences and like, oh, that's kind of how I'm keeping up. But you can clearly see, I think the the difference between an industry conference and what, a private equity firm like Carlyle's doing, where they bring everybody together and they've got all these technology partners, and now it's far more targeted. And at the same time, you're getting a broader, scope of technology and opportunities than you would with, just going to industry conferences where, yeah, there might be something interesting. Yeah, you'll get some, kind of some things. But this seems like several times better, and for the portfolio company than just going to an industry conference. Where you're like, yeah, okay, I knew about that. I knew about that. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and you want me to buy, and it's this constant sales pitch versus this targeted. Oh, you've got this problem. Well, you need to go talk to John over here, and Jane over there is great with this. They'll be able to help you with this. I mean, that's how do you beat that? I mean, that's
Yeah.
geez.
I think the big thing there is the Carlisle, not just like the tech team, but they obviously are pretty successful at growing companies and selling them and where to invest and et cetera, right? And so they've seen this, done this, they've forgotten more about all of that than I know. And so they're really helpful. And the key word there is helpful. They're not dictating.
Yeah.
They don't tell you, they're just saying these are things that have really worked in the past. So when we get together with port codes and we talk about, it was really fascinating to listen to some of the insurance companies talk about how they do use Gen AI to look at claims and read claims, and they can go through claims faster, and they can, look at, okay, that's an anomaly, that's not, and they're training these models to do that. And that's a great use case for Gen AI.
Yeah.
But I don't have a use case yet, right? And so I think that's what's great about them is that they know how to grow companies. Rob and Michael speak that language too. So it's like they get it, and they're there to just help you grow the company. And there's nothing that's dictated, there's nothing that's mandated, and it's just been a great partnership. And like I mentioned before, I've been in others where it's has been dictated, do this, do this, do this, and then you do that, and like, why did you do that? Right? I mean, you get a lot of that sometimes in some private equity companies, and this one just has happened to be um, unbelievable in terms of their ability to help and assist us grow.
Well, you're now about 8 years into your into Carlisle being on board. So it's between now and 2027 that they're going to be looking to be out, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
where's that put you then, right? I mean, you've
yeah.
spent this time, do you obviously you're not going to still have access to the, to the Carlisle groups, you know, uh, you know, Portco, meetings. So the technology meetings are gone. What then? What's it look like after that?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate to be both in the publicly traded world. So been part of a lot of exits like
Mhm.
this. And it can go a couple ways. It can be another PE group comes in and hopefully they have the same, type of resources, like I mean, just making up name, KKR, whoever, whatever
Yep.
big firm you want to name. And do they have that? And basically the team stays together, likely stays together and just continues the growth pattern. But like I mentioned before, I kind of grew up in the waste industry. So when Republic Services, which is now 14, 15, 16 billion, whatever it is, was really small and a startup in South Florida, you know, we bought a company called Allied Waste. It's a $6.5 billion transaction where you're putting two companies together. So it's a competitive buy. And then when I was the CIO at Advanced Disposal, which is about a $2 billion kind of regional player, Waste Management bought Advanced. And again, they had a CIO, they had a management team. And so basically you're exiting. So it will be interesting to see, is this another PE group, a family group, or what's coming in to buy and what resources they have. And I'm sure that would be part of the discussion. But if it's a competitive buy, if someone comes in and buys us and says, one of our big competitors, then it's just, you hand over the keys and you be a good steward for that transaction, and you leave on a good note and you go find something else, right? And so it'll be really interesting because, to your point, Carlyle's, at the exit point and exiting this particular vertical anyway. And we'll see what the future holds. So we'll see where it goes, and should be an exciting ride for sure.
No, I mean, that is exciting. And you've got a really good perspective on it too. I mean, I think a lot of people get very very fearful of I'd say change in general, but especially when it comes to their job, right? So, kind of curious, you seem very very comfortable with it, right? Well, if that's
Yeah.
way, has it always been that way, or is that something that you learned, or is it, where's that come from?
Oh, that's learned. So the first time you go through that and you're told, hey, a competitor's buying you. I remember the first time. So it was we bought Allied Waste. So Republic was about 2.5 billion, Allied about 6 billion. They were kind of going through some financial difficulties. They were based in Phoenix. We were based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we were the buyer. But they kind of went best of breed, meaning, okay, you pick the CEO and then on down, right? So they picked at this point, I was reporting to the CIO. I wasn't the CIO at Republic, but um, I remember Bill Halnan, who was the CIO there, was like, I don't know if I'm going to have a job, right? And so I'm like, oh, wow. And I had been at Republic at that point almost 10 years. It was my first IT job where I started. And I didn't know if I was going to have a job. And that angst kind of came through. And um, what was interesting was, okay, Bill became CIO. We all moved to Phoenix at the time. That's where they moved the headquarters. That company became big. Um, and then as I continued on through my career journey, this is happening a lot. So I've been fortunate enough to be in high growth. People want to buy the company, whether that's, competitive and they want to synergize, right? There's a lot of overlap in the waste business, right? So you're selling off assets. There's a lot of DOJ hurdles, right? So you just kind of go through that experience and you kind of know what to expect. And so really the last three or four companies I've all been at have gone through this kind of exit process. And it's just been, okay, if that means it's time to go find something new on my, it's not like I'm leaving because I necessarily want to leave. I'm leaving because we built a great company that somebody wanted to buy. Typically, the buyer gets to dictate, I already have a CIO. We're comfortable with that CIO. Or I've been in situations where, like, yeah, Doug, we'd like you to stay, but I want to grow companies and be transformational. And if that's not what the CEO or the board or that leadership team wants, it's just not for me. I don't want to. Like I mentioned, there's great things about keeping the lights on. It's really important. And in some businesses, it's great. That's just not me. I would be bored. And so I've left situations like of the last company where I was just like, the new company came in, hey, we just want to grow this thing through M&A, and we just want you to just keep this ERP running, and that's it. Nope, no thanks. Move to the ice company where I could actually work with the team and grow. So I think you just have to embrace the change and enjoy it and want to grow companies and be part of that type of team. And I found that, the last 10 years of my life, it's been very fascinating to kind of go through that. And you just have to embrace. I think I was like a football coach. New owner comes in, you're probably going to get canned. That's okay. If you're a good coach, you're going to find another job. So
Yeah.
all good.
And so I'm assuming that your first time through it was nerve-wracking. Then you found that it wasn't that it wasn't that hard going out there and finding your next opportunity. And so with a little practice and repetition, you got a little more comfortable with it, knowing that there will be a branch to land on when you jump off of this one. Is that about the gist of it?
That's accurate. Is you have to be confident in yourself that look, there's going to be companies out there that kind of want your skill set. I've kind of found my niche in the logistics, manufacturing that has some distribution component to it. Field services type area. Like I'm not going to go into banking. I'm not going to go to Bank of America all of a sudden. I'm not going to go into healthcare all of a sudden. Would I do it? And would if somebody offered? Sure, I go learn it, and I love to learn. But obviously, people always hire based on these experiences, and I think that there's when you start talking about analytics and IoT and AI, that's another skill set that's kind of hot right now. And how do you monetize it? How do you use it to grow the company? And I think that's kind of what makes you marketable. I think it's harder if you're like, hey, I'm good at keeping the lights on. I think it's a little
Yes.
harder to find. So it's just, there's just a little bit of you got to have a little bit of confidence in yourself, and you got to be you know what? I'm not afraid of change, right? And I love it. I love that. I love a little bit of chaos, so to speak.
Yeah. Now I'm right there with you, which is why, I love, owning and running a business because it's never the same day twice. You get to,
Hmm.
it's always, kind of your level of chaos, whatever you want to create. You want it to just keep the lights on? Cool. Keep the lights on. You want
That's
to
right.
swing for the fences all the time? Swing for the fences.
Yeah.
You screw up, it's on you, right?
Yeah.
But no, I think that's great. And I think that's really good, kind of for people to hear that it really is about now. I think you've built up those skills, and experiences in things that are in very high demand right now. So yeah, if that happens, cool. Bringing that sort of skill set to a group that hasn't done it yet. I mean, boom, you're in. Yeah, of course we want the guy who's already done that. So yeah, that's really smart. And I kind of wonder about the people who are the keep the lights on type of people. Like it seems like a very I don't know, scary place, right? You're afraid of change, you're afraid of this, you're afraid of that. And so losing your job is very scary. But I think that it's because that may be the perspective that they create. I could be completely wrong, because
I
I'm
don't
kind
think
of
you
in that
are.
I'm in that world
I
with
don't
you
think
where
you
it's
are.
like you, yeah. I,
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I know a lot of peers. I mean, it's interesting, not to pick on my wife's company, but a really successful company, and I'm not in it. I don't know. I listen to my wife talk about it. They make money on accident. The product is so good, and I listen to it's interesting. So you look at the IT structure, who they report to, and it almost tells you what's going on. Typically, not all the time. If you're reporting to a CFO, okay, let's keep the lights on, let's keep the costs down. If it's I'm an order taker, hey, we want you to do this. Great, I'll do that. And you can be really good at, and those things are important. But like in my wife's company, they don't even have a CIO, the CFO, and then a couple directors. So can imagine that what is the IT strategy? I don't know. There is one, right? But it may work for them, right? But I just shy away. I recently had an opportunity to talk to a recruiter called me, and IT reported up through HR. I'm like,
what?
what? Like, and you want to be innovative and transformational? I just like I don't under like that was she was
Huh.
I actually talked to the leader. She's wonderful, and she was almost like, look, this is going to report into the CEO eventually, but it's just a little bit of a red flag, right?
Yeah.
And you really want the to kind of be a neutral party and reporting in as a peer with the CEO, with all the functional heads. And when you can work together on a strategy, I think is important versus being kind of buried down in the org a little bit.
Yep.
And it just really depends on the company. And I think that most companies not all, but there's a lot of them out there that are still just focused on the lights. Hey, keep it running, keep it smooth, keep the costs down, which is kind of counter to what I think should happen. But I'm not embedded in those companies. Maybe they're just making money hand over fist. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very future proof to me. You've
Mhm.
got, as far as I'm concerned, if you're not innovating, I mean, just look at what happened there with the call center. Call centers were a great thing, and they started, decades ago, and they were needed. great. And that was a solid job, a much needed thing. However, as technologies and times change, I mean, let's face it, we don't have printing presses anymore. We have,
Yeah.
you've got a printer right there. Boom, things are so much faster. If you're still, stuck in printing presses, what's your business going to be in now, let alone in 10 years? So you kind of have to adopt this stuff. So the keeping the lights on thing, I think I'm right there with you. I think it's short-sighted and I think it's fear-based. But I did think that was really interesting. I mean, IT under HR, the CIO reporting to, wow, I think that's great. That's a red flag. So you're going for a job, for anybody out there looking for a new job, I think that's a word to the wise. If the CIO isn't reporting directly to the, to the CEO along with the other, leadership team, then that's really telling. And I think that's really astute. And I think a lot of people might overlook that and then get in it and be like, ah, crap. Yeah, we're reporting to the CFO. Everything is keep the cost down, keep the cost down. There's no money for anything. Or, yeah, and I know that's a horrible generalization. Clearly,
Mhm.
that's not always the case. But I think, are they going to be innovative? Probably not. Is it going to be
Mm-mm.
easy to implement a new project? Are you going to be right there, kind of helping the organization execute its business plans and strategies? No, because you're now a layer down. You simply can't. It's not as effective. So I think that's great for people to kind of keep an eye out for, whether you're working with a company or wanting to work at that company. I think that's a really interesting point you got there.
It is. I think that's anybody that approaches me with an opportunity, that's kind of the first thing I talk about. And then once you talk to a business leader, it's what is the strategy? Like, what is your business strategy? Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to do? Because I've got to align with that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many people, and not just in a job interview, because you want to talk to IT leaders. Well, just I don't tell me about what you're doing on the service desk. And great, but what's your business trying to do?
Yeah.
Right? Don't talk to me about agentic AI. That doesn't matter. It's like, what are you solving? And then go find something to solve it. But you really got to know what the strategy of the company is. And that gets down to the leadership, not just the CEO, but the entire leadership team. Do they work well together? What's that culture like? And I think that's really the key, because you can be ultra successful with a good leadership team, and that culture just resonates down. Or is it siloed and everybody's kind of just focused on a top line number? Or what is it? Like, what are you trying to do? And so I think it's who you report to, and along with the strategy, are the two things that I want to know kind of way up front.
Yeah, I love it. I think the words to the wise. Doug, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been an absolute pleasure. Loved every minute of it. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and where they can find out more about Arctic Glacier?
Sure. So our website, arcticglacier.com, has a lot of wealth of information. My LinkedIn page, with I think is like Saunders DG. I don't really know the URL, but if you just search me, there's a really some cool videos and things about the ice industry that I've posted. I do a lot of posting about a lot of the stuff we've talked about. Love to hear from people. A lot of people kind of reach out to and just ask questions. Happy to help. One of the big things I like to do, and I do it through a lot of organizations, is mentor up and coming IT executives. So if I can help anybody in any way, especially with their career growth, I'm willing to do it. So feel free to reach out.
That's awesome. Doug, thanks again. And until next time.
All right, take care. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.